think the journey part of it, uh, as far as the plot itself goes, one of the things that students always ask, so I'm going to ask these two. They always ask, "What are your writing habits? How do you? What should I do?" Well, a student will always ask, "What should I do if I want to be a writer? How should very practically should I do that?" And the other one is, uh, do you have your plot all wrapped up before you start? So take those questions in order if you want to.
Okay. So, if you want to be a writer, what should you do? Here's
If
my.
you're listening right now,
Yeah.
get your notepad or your phone out. I guess if you're a young writer.
I have two valuable pieces of advice to offer those of you out there who hope to be writers. The first is this: write every day, 7 days a week. I don't care if you're working. I don't care if you're overwhelmed with studies. I don't care what seems to be eating up all of your time. You can certainly carve out half an hour, 45 minutes in every day to bend to the work. And what that does is that it keeps you connected with the energy of a project, but it also sends a message to everyone around you that this is important to you. And maybe even more important, it confirms in your own mind the importance of being a writer, the importance of the writing in your own life. So that's my first piece of advice: write every day. And the second piece of advice is this: marry somebody with a good job. In terms of
should you wait until you're after age 18 to do that, Ken? Ideally, if you're a high school sophomore and listening to this, don't get married until you're 18 at least.
Yeah, listen to this guy. And in terms of how I write my stories, do I know the ending before I begin? It depends on the kind of story I'm writing, Jan. If I'm writing a mystery in my Corporal Connor series, those are all essentially mysteries. And a mystery is a very tightly woven fabric of storytelling. Everything depends so significantly on everything else in a mystery. And I think the success of a mystery depends largely on the timing of the reveals. When do you give the reader the clues that are going to be necessary for solving the mystery at the heart of the story? So when I write a story in my Corporal Connor series, I think that story through as completely as I can before I ever put my fingers to the keyboard. At the end of that thinking process, I know how the story begins. I know how it ends. I know who did what to whom and why. I know the themes I want to weave through the story. But when I'm writing a standalone like Ordinary Grace or This Tender Land, for those stories come from a different place, and I have sought a different creative process for those books. I want those stories, because they come from a deep place in my heart, I want them to feel more organic to the reader. So when I have written both of those books, I generally speaking have had no idea where I'm going to go with the story or how it's going to end. In each of those books, I knew a few essential elements of the story I was going to tell. And I let those guide me then as I was creating the story. But pretty much, I allowed the story to reveal itself to me as I was writing the manuscript. And those were two of the most extraordinary experiences I ever had as a writer. I'm not sure I would ever write a Corporal Connor story that way. Because so often, plot is so important in the mystery. And I'm afraid I would wake up in the middle of the night, having written myself up into a dark alley going, oh, what the hell am I doing? What do I do next? And I hate that. Yeah.
Well, you could pull out a little of the mysticism. You've got you pronounce it Wendigo. The coffee pot rattles off the stove. You could have some sort of supernatural show up to help get cork out of the corner, I guess.
Well, I often have an element of, you could call it the supernatural. One of the things
that's handy for you.
Well, one of the things that I love about and have really embraced in terms of the culture of the Ojibwe and many Native people is they see the world in a very different way than those of us with European ancestry do, and they're more than willing to open their understanding to all of the things that occur in existence that you and I either ignore or are not aware of. And I just love that. I mean, in in uh, in this tender land, Odie, when he's beginning to tell the story, he says, I think we should open ourselves to every possibility because there's nothing our hearts can imagine that is not so. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, that's beautiful.